Hello and welcome to Pickleball Therapy, the podcast dedicated to your pickleball improvement. My name is Tony Roig. In this week's podcast, I'm going to share with you some takeaways that I had from participating in the 10th U.S. Open this last week down in Naples, Florida. Before you leave the podcast, if you don't play in tournaments, I will tell you that what we're going to talk about here applies not just to tournaments, it applies to rec play as well, and any kind of play, league play. It's basically ideas that will help you not just feel better when you play pickleball, because you will. You're also going to play better pickleball, because I will tell you that during this U.S. Open, I played some of the best pickleball I've played in my life. I was focused. I was in the game. I was doesn't mean I won, but it means I played very, very well. In fact, it was kind of funny after the Open. Kylene, who's on our team and does our social media and things like that behind the scenes, posted some photos and shared some of the content on our, I think it was on our Facebook page. And Scott Fliegelman, who's a really good player out of Colorado, who I played in the first round, wrote into it and said, "Best I've seen you play." So Scott, if you're listening to the podcast, I appreciate the feedback on that. So that's what we're going to do on this week's podcast. Before we dive into the podcast, if you have not yet had a chance to check out our book, Pickleball Therapy, highly recommend you check that out. It's called Pickleball Therapy, the book. You can find it on Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Walmart, wherever you like better. They have it there. If you have read the book and have a moment to provide feedback about it on any of those platforms, really appreciate you doing that. It helps other players find the book as well. And the feedback can be as honest as you want it to be. I don't have a problem with any kind of feedback. So, all right, let me give you some, let me set the stage first, and then I'll give you some of the lessons that I took away. So the U.S. Open is one of the largest pickleball tournaments of the year. It was actually, in my personal journey, it holds a dear place. I was fortunate to play in the 2016 U.S. Open. That was the first year, of its inception year, and it was really set the hook for me in pickleball. You know, I mean, I was already going from 2015. I was really invested, but the 2016 U.S. Open really, kind of was the final hook, or hook setting, and so. Being able to go back this year, I wasn't able to go last year. This year I was able to play in it. My friend Jeff Burton from Indiana, I've been saying Carolina, so I thought it was Carolina, but it's Indiana, was kind enough to reach out and ask me to partner with him. So we went down there and participated in the event. I was down there, played on Wednesday in the Senior Pro Men's. I think they call it Champions Men's now, but it's Senior Pro Men's. We had two really, really good matches. First match we played against Scott Fliegelman, who I mentioned earlier, and Danny Werfel, winner of the Heisman Trophy and national championship in football and college at University of Florida, which is my alma mater, and also played a little bit in the NFL. The reason I point that out is because one of the fascinating things about pickleball is, it gives you an opportunity to meet folks that you would not meet otherwise. Other than going to the same school as Danny a little bit before he was there, I had no reason to cross paths with Danny in my life except for pickleball. And so you get to meet all these interesting people through the sport, which I think is fascinating. Anyway, in that first game, we won the first match, I should say. We won the first game 11-6, and then they came back strong in game two. Credit to them. They upped their game. They won game 2 11-8, and we had a really nice game 3 with some I think it was like 7-6 or 7-7 for a minute there, and then they were able to pull away, and they ended up winning 11-8. So it was 11-6, 11-8, 11-8. Just a really good match all around. Either team could have taken that match. And then the back draw, I got to play against Lance Cowherd, who I've known for a minute now. We played several times against each other. Really nice gentleman. And then I met a new player named Chip James, or at least new to me, and his partner. Again, another really nice person and good player. Two very, very good players. Jeff and I battled them hard. It was one game to 15 because it's in the back draw. Interesting piece of this that I'll give you a little side note. I went back and looked at the video later, and I noticed that we had played for right around 25 minutes. Okay, and I will tell you that you can use time as an indicator for quality of play, because when you have good return side play, the game will last longer, right? Because you have, don't make you score points on the serve side, et cetera. So basically, if you're siding out a lot, that'll extend the game. Plus, it also shows long rallies. So just something you can use for yourself in terms of analyzing, your metric you can use for yourself is how long are your games lasting. The longer your games last, probably the better the play. So, and we went down 15-9 in that match. So, but again, 2 really good matches. And one of the things about tournament play, I think that's helpful to think about. And it also applies in rec games, which is, we play a game where one team has to win and one team has to lose. That's just that's the bargain. That's the bargain we agree to, right? We go in there and we say, okay, one of us is going to win, one of us is going to lose. We're both going to give our best out there. But in tournament setting, the only way a tournament can work is if teams lose, right? Some teams lose because otherwise the thing gets jammed up, right? So if you're the team that was the team that went 0-2 or 1-2 or 2-2, okay, it's just part of the deal, right? And you're making way for the tournament to continue to advance. When you're playing in rec, right? If you're the losing side, just remember that loss is a condition precedent to your friends who are your opponents in that situation winning. So they can't win unless you lose. So yeah, it's just a different way kind of framing it. All right, let me give you guys some takeaways from my experience that'll help you with your experience. Is my plan here. So number one is, I will tell you that a calm mind equals better play. Okay, and that seems like a pretty obvious statement, right? But how often do we actually apply that in practice, right? Just calm mind equals better play. If you're clear on your why of pickleball or why you're there, and we did the podcast episode last week, if you didn't get a chance to listen to it, was your why of pickleball. When you know your why, then you're much calmer in terms of your expectations, in terms of everything that's going on. I was perfectly clear on why I was playing at this tournament. And when Jeff reached out and we had a conversation about it, I told him, I said, I'm happy to go down there and battle. I will give it everything I have on the court. But I am not I'm not drilling like I would be if I was, okay, we're going to, make a run. I'm not playing enough of these kind of high level competitive matches to be able to see the same shots, to see the balls the way you need to if you want to be able to compete at that level. And like in the tournament, you had a lot of other top senior pro players and just players who have a level of dedication to their craft from a play standpoint and from a competition standpoint that I'm not matching right now, because my focus as a pickleball in the pickleball space, if you will, is as a coach. That's my love. That's what I spend a ton of time there. I'll put myself up against any other coach out there in terms of curriculum, ideas, process, whatever you want, I'm in. And I'm pretty confident I would have a good chance of if not getting to the finals and maybe winning the competition. I'm in the mix. On the play side, though, right? If I'm not putting in the time, the drilling time, the work time, it's kind of disrespectful, right, for me to just expect to just show up, to roll down there and just cruise to a medal. When I look at a field of players who are dedicated to their craft from the play and competition standpoint and are putting in the time and effort and are also obviously very good athletes and are trying as hard as I am, as hard as anybody else on the field, right? So understanding your why, right? My reason to go down there was I was happy to be there. Love the energy. I love seeing these players. I love seeing, players that I don't get to see from all over the country. I wanted to be out there and competing with Jeff as long as he was okay with us just giving it our best, which we did. All good, right? And so I wasn't stressed out, a little bit. You get a little bit anxious in the tournament, right? You feel it a little bit before you get out there, but I was not like, I was joking around with Danny and Scott while we were playing. I was joking around with Lance and Chip while we were playing, in a good humored way. I was engaging with Jeff in positive ways. We had really nice exchanges with each other, supporting each other. And, we were talking strategy, but, it was great. We missed a shot, no big deal. Did something and maybe it would have been something different. We had a conversation. It was all really good stuff. So if you know your why, right, you're going to have a calm mind. Calm mind, you're going to play better. I think it's important to celebrate the moments. I just alluded to that a little bit. There was, Jeff did I can't remember what it was right now. I think it might have been an around the post. And it was just a really nice play by him. It was a, back and bing, bing, boom kind of thing. And I actually dropped the paddle because it's kind of a jokey thing I do where I'm kind of like mic drop. So I kind of looked at him and I dropped my paddle and I was like, come on, man, that's crazy. And so, celebrating those moments, having a good time, because I know, I shouldn't say I know, but I suspect that a lot of us, whenever we miss a shot or we have those kind of moments, right? Those are highlighted, right? Those go on our highlight reel in our brain. Like, oh my God, I can't believe I missed that shot. Oh my God, I can't believe I popped the ball up. Oh my God, whatever. But why not apply some of that same kind of energy, that same kind of bandwidth to the good stuff? Because I guarantee you're doing good stuff. Whether it's defending a shot that you put the paddle down, whether it's a nice reset off a block volley, whether you dinked a really good ball to the outside to the middle and put pressure on them, all those things, right? Retrieved a lob, whatever. Celebrate the moment, celebrate the good things that happen out there. I think it's really important. And I alluded to this as well earlier, but know that you're all out there competing, right? I mean, we're all on the court, like we're playing a game, but we're battling each other, right? So it's like in this case, it's me and Jeff against Scott and Danny. In your case, it's you and your partner against two other players who are normally going to be your friends out there. And you're just out there, you're competing, you're giving it your all. The idea of understanding that they're competing against you it's also a respect thing, right? It's you're respecting your opponent, you're respecting the game, you're respecting what's going on. The same way that you hope they respect you and they respect your game and they respect what you're doing. So just remember you're all out there competing, and remember that win-loss idea, right? Basically, that's the deal, right? That's the if you don't like, the idea of losing, right? Then this is, I'm not trying to talk you out of pickleball, but a sport like pickleball may not be for you, because, you can do things like toss a Frisbee and, play Kadima, go play disc golf by yourself, whatever. You don't have to win or lose. This game is built around winning and losing, so if you're going to engage with it, then just say, okay, it's just part of the deal. No, nothing more. Athletic pillar, guys. So we've been talking about the mind a lot. Don't forget your body, right? If you want to compete at the best you can, spend some time on your body. I realized in this tournament, I probably got to turn back. I've been doing a lot of strength training. I haven't been doing enough cardio training. So I'm going to have to turn back to some cardio, some aggressive walking, stuff like that I can do to really help on the cardio side. But I will tell you this, I had forgotten there's a difference in the energy expenditure when you're playing competitively and when you're not playing competitively, at least for me. When I'm playing rec, I still go out there, I give what I can, but I'm not there's not the adrenaline and all that stuff going on. So I find that I can play longer in rec without getting exhausted than I can in competitive play. Because if you look at the quality of my shots in game 1 and game 3 of the first match, vastly different quality. And again, I'm not taking anything from Scott and Danny here. I'm just observing, like, you can see like my drives. In game 1, my drives are crisp and they're aggressive, and my dinking is spot on. I'm getting down low. And then in game 3, my drives are floating and all that stuff, because the gas is different. So just pay attention to your body if you want to play your best. I'm gonna tell you that the hard and soft game, the soft game is still viable. There's a hard game out there. There's drives, but listen, banging's always been around, guys. This idea that like banging is new isn't true. Yes, the paddles have gotten faster, right? But the idea of players trying to hit hard through other players, that's been around for a long time. I used to do that, when I came into the sport doing that because I was a tennis player. But I will tell you, the soft game is still alive and well, guys. Alive and well. When we played Lance and Chip, for example, Lance and Chip, I don't know this 100%, but I got to believe they played college tennis or some high level of competitive tennis. And both of them excellent, hands, excellent pace. And so players like that, they can handle pace. And so in that match, our strategy was not to go as hard as we did in game 1, but to soften things up. Right. And it worked. I mean, we lost the match, but the rallies we were able to get into the soft game and things like that were the ones that I think we had some success with. They did it well. They have a good soft game, but in terms of like thinking through your processes, don't sleep on the soft game. The soft game is alive and well, and is still strategically relevant. This is a game of inches, guys. When you're dealing in competitive, when I say competitive here, I don't mean competitive like tournament, but a well contested game, it's going to be decided by small things. And I'll give you one specific example. So we had Danny hit an around the post shot. I believe it was in game 2. He hit an around the post shot, and Jeff initially called it out. And in fairness to Jeff, those are hard to call, right? Because it's like kind of like the ball's coming at a weird angle to him, and he's so it's a bang bang play. Hits it hard. He calls it out. I didn't see it because I'm on the side of Jeff, and Jeff's body was all over around the shot. And then Scott and Danny were unhappy with it, right? So, which is okay. They're entitled to that. They appealed. The ref couldn't do anything about it. I asked Jeff if he was 100%. And if he was 100%, there's no argument that I don't care what, I mean, I do care what Scott and Danny think, but I'm not going to change our position based on them being upset if Jeff's 100%. But Jeff was cool about it. Jeff said, pretty sure, but, and I told him, well, Danny and Scott seemed like they're 100%. And, Danny obviously could see it down the line, and then Scott could see it better than I could. But Danny had the best, the best look at it. And so we changed our call, right? We changed our call in that moment. And the reason I tell you this story is not about the call change, although, I think you can use that for yourself if that's helpful to you, if you have problems with calls. But it was close. Like, in other words, it was like maybe 1 inch, half an inch or 1 inch to the outside. We win that point. And that was a critical juncture. I don't remember, it was like 7-8 or 7-6 or something like that, but it was a critical juncture of the match. And so it could have swung the other way had with an inch difference, right? Because the reason I say it would have been an inch further, it would have been like an inch out, where it was, then Danny and Scott wouldn't have objected. Our call would have stood and would have been fine, right? So anyway, it's a game of inches, guys. So when you're thinking about like the win and the loss, just remember there's a lot of things happen, whether it's a net cord or an out ball or an in ball, that is just so small, the differences in those hotly contested games. And then lastly, guys and gals, enjoy the ride. Enjoy the experience. From my vantage point, there's absolutely no reason to go out to a pickleball court and leave it upset. None. Pickleball is a voluntary activity for anybody listening to this podcast, right? You do it for enjoyment, exercise, social, whatever your reason is. That's from last week's podcast, so you go back and listen to that one. But there is absolutely no reason to leave a pickleball court with anything other than a smile on your face, because you're engaging in one of the best activities in the world that you can engage with. It is, if you're playing it in your zone, it is available to you. Be thankful for that. You have other folks in your community, in your area, and your nearby, who are also interested in playing this sport, because otherwise you couldn't play it by yourself. So all these things have to come together. So there's really no situation where you leave a pickleball court without a smile on your face. So enjoy the ride, enjoy the bumps and bruises and the great shots and the crappy shots. Enjoy them all as best you can. And the more you work on it, on your gratitude practice, on reframing those things in a way that isn't destructive to you, isn't harmful to you, the better you're going to enjoy your sport. And again, pragmatically, you're going to play better. All right, that's this week's podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have a moment to rate and review the podcast, really appreciate you do so. Helps us reach other players in this algorithm data-driven world. And lastly, if you really enjoyed the podcast and you have a friend who you think might enjoy the podcast, share it with them, because if you enjoyed the podcast, they probably will too. I look forward to seeing you next week on our next episode of Pickleball Therapy. I'll be recording that one from the PPA in Atlanta, so it should be interesting. Be well, and I'll see you then.